Board of Directors December meeting to order with the very first sentiment of the night is wishing you all a very happy holiday. A slight adjustment to the agenda in terms of the order of the agenda. We had put an agenda item and it got put at the very end of the agenda. We'd like to move it up. Is the representative for David Jarman here tonight going to speak? We were told it might be Rod Kendall, but we were also told it might be someone else. Is there anybody here tonight who's going to take ownership of that agenda item?
I'm here to help represent Dave Jarman.
Yeah, but did you ask for the agenda item?
He ask for the agenda item. He was presenting.
Yeah. And so you,
Yes.
I mean, you've been assigned by him.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'll, when you guys are ready for that.
Okay. So with that said, Alice, why don't you take the role of the board?
Okay.
Call to order, Andy Andrews, President.
Present.
Robert Golden, Vice President. Cheryl Cobb, Treasurer. Present. Alice Lindahl, Secretary, here. Valerie Management Director. Up here. Daryl Singleton, Director.
Present.
Patty Hasistic, for her office.
Here.
Sorry. I was gonna try to do it without a microphone.
Okay, so we are going to, as we did in the last board meeting, and it seemed to work well, because there are questions that some of you arrived with, that are questions that preceded the meeting, and then there are questions that come up as a result of the meeting. And we found out that if we do the questions either before or after, we end up falling short on one of those two needs. So we've, for the second month in a row, we're going to try again the process of having opening questions or statements. By the way, they don't need to be a question form, it can be a statement. And then we're going to do the same thing at the end. However, we are going to, as I mentioned, we are going to move the Dave Jarman agenda request to the very top of, because we have reason to believe that a great many of the questions may have to do with that very item. And so we thought that we would get that discussed first. So, Smiley, you say that you have been assigned by Dave Jarman to do the presentation on his behalf?
Yeah, I am. I've been communicating with the group of homeowners there that I'm sure you guys all know, they all want a road home.
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself to the
Okay.
community, and then why don't you come on up and actually
Yes,
take the agenda. And because of the gravity of this situation, we're not going to place any time constraint at all on it. So however much time Smiley would like to have to present that item is the way we're going to move forward. So go ahead.
Okay.
And if you'd rather sit, bring up a chair.
Well, I'll stand.
Okay.
I just, hi, aloha, happy holidays, all you guys. And I'm really grateful to be in this community with all of you. And my goal is that we all heal and move forward and thrive. So, being said, I am Smiley Burrows. We own Green Mountain down in Kapoho. Lost 3 houses down there, but I've resided here on Kula Street for 13 years. So it's been both places that I have resided. So this is my home as well as Kapoho. I myself am a Kapuka resident. I have no access to our 257-acre farm that supported my family. I now work at a nursery and have 6 kids, 7 macaws, and I've been very involved with trying to help our whole community recover. So basically, as Andy and all of us know, it's been very difficult dealing with the county, getting funding, asking for the funding to go to the actual disaster area. And I know what a challenge it is for this particular community, being that they've consistently pushed away and not been supportive. So I know the challenge that the community is facing in trying to help the rest of the community. So as I've been a pain in Harry Kim's ass, I have seemed to be noticed by people that want to get things done, so they reach out to me, gosh, can you help us too? And so I've done everything that I can to try to help people recover wherever and however. I see the whole community, especially the subdivisions that got inundated, but I see the private roads that need to be restored. I see the county roads that I believe should all be restored, the infrastructure, the water. We're pushing for all of it. We started a Lower Puna coalition called Imua Lower Puna, and it is a bunch of awesome individuals, primarily the leaders of the community associations, like Andy, Dane. There's several people here that have been involved with the coalition, and it's to keep an eye on the funding and to push for the recovery funding to stay here, because we really are the ones that were affected, not Kona. I mean, they were slightly affected, but we definitely have a deeper understanding of the eruption, and we experienced it, and we are the ones that deserve the federal funding, that paid the taxes, that need our roads restored. So I don't know if everybody's aware, there is a group of homeowners down at the end of Kahukai that did not lose their homes. Six of those parcels still have homes remaining, and I believe there's 5 other parcels that are intact that haven't been covered in lava.
Right.
So 11 properties that need access, and it's been very difficult from Leilani's perspective, because the county has not been willing to go forward and to try to help with any kind of cost for the reconstruction of about 3,860 feet. So the homeowners, I started to communicate with some of them about a year ago, and started learning their stories and their desire, of course, to get back home, because it's, you know, I have empathy because I can't get back to my home, and it's really difficult. So I told them I'll do whatever I can to try to help the situation. So we're at a standstill, because at this point, without the help from county funding, these particular residents assume that it's the responsibility of the Leilani Association. I've at this point managed to get 2 actual estimates for road work to open up that road. So surprisingly lower than what I thought.
So now, has Dave brought you up to speed on what happened yesterday and today?
Maybe.
Okay. So, well, let me expand and
Yeah.
jump in at any point.
Yeah.
So the board was approached by, the main spokesperson appears to be for that group, that they're not a formal group, but one of the homeowners down there by the name of Dave Jarman has been the main spokesperson for that group. He approached the board the day before yesterday with a message that said he's going to pay for the road in its entirety, and he sent us that message. So we met, so the board is absolutely supportive of him going ahead on that. We met with our attorney yesterday, and Mr. Jarman has been in communication with Lincoln Ashita, the LCA attorney, to put all the paperwork together to make that happen. And so that's in the works now, as far as we know. There's some issues that some detailed issues need to get worked out. But it appears that road is going to go through with independent funding.
Also,
That's awesome.
yeah. So, yes, it's good news. I also have been in touch with, so basically Malama Opuna, they're a nonprofit that Renee Syracusa is in charge. She's reached out and said she's willing, as a nonprofit, to umbrella the costs of the situation. And basically what that means is whoever is willing to fund this, we need to have a grant writer help out, but the funding could actually be a tax deductible donation. So that's extremely positive that Renee stepped in and wants to take action. So that's a bonus. And also I'm gonna be meeting with Michael Kalakini from PGV, who is also willing to step in with a donation. So I don't know how much, but that's really great too. So I have,
And those two,
I'm setting a time to meet
the
with
one
him.
about Renee and Mike, that we're hearing that for the first time tonight, so.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, I think, little by little, I think that was, the homeowners, there's the Malama Key people a few months ago, we were really focused on that. They're all getting home, and it's just awesome. And now Route 132 is open, and just the healing and the transformation for people to get back. Like, I drove down the road and went to my friend's 70th birthday party yesterday, and it's just awesome to have our lives slowly getting, regained, and yet we are just at the beginning, and we need like as much community support. Tomorrow we have an Imua Lower Puna meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna announce that.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, it looks like if you guys need help with continuing to work on it, I know that there's a lot of 55 other properties would get access if this road project to Kahukai, to the homes that didn't get inundated. There's a large amount of people that would actually regain access, so I know there's a lot of posing questions involved with that, but if there's anything I can do to help try to reach out to those people and communicate, I'm here to help you guys.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Shirley, for all you do for us.
So just to address some of the concerns of the community, nothing's going to move forward without a very carefully drawn up legal document. We have begun the initial discussions about that with our attorney and with Mr. Jarman in particular. Our attorney tells us he had a very positive and productive conversation, and that there are definitely I's to dot and T's to cross, but and of course, as is both required but appropriate, the community will be kept up to speed on it every step of the way in terms of potential costs, in terms of the legal implications of doing it. What I will say is our attorney made an important statement. Alice and I went into a meeting with the attorney yesterday, and he made what I felt was a crucially important statement yesterday. He said, the things that are happening in Leilani, he said the bad news is, which is from a lawyer's point of view, they have no precedent. And he said, but the good news is they have no precedent. And so he said, within the bounds of the state 421J law that governs HOA and our bylaws, which have to be adhered to rigorously, it looks as if there are steps forward. So anyway, we are gonna proceed with those steps forward.
And I just wanted to share one more aspect about Dave Jarman. He, during the evacuation, fell from a ladder and became paraplegic. He is in a wheelchair now and paralyzed. So, yeah, I know that he's going through a lot. And so when these people all get back home, maybe we can have a celebration here, and let's plan on that. Yeah.
So anyway, thanks, Smiley, for that. So now we're gonna move into the opening statements and questions. We do ask it to be self-limiting to 3 minutes. If you, we're not gonna keep any clocks running, but you know, try to keep it to that. I will say in regard to the topic that Smiley just covered, we don't have any more answers than what we've just told you. It's in the works. That's all we've got for you right now. So if you do have specifics about opening the bottom of Kabukai Street, we really, I don't think have, Alice, anything else that we took away from the attorney that we can?
Well, he's working on the kind of, the kind of problems that will come up to make sure we anticipate them. And especially having to do with rerouting the road, because we can't go exactly right down the road. And, but also future recommendations about the use of the road too, which that still needs to be worked out. Because it's gonna be a crude road, and so we can't have jeepers going up and down it and, wrecking it. And so it needs to be repaired right off of that. So those kind of details.
Yeah,
And probably many more.
I think they're actually, because it's a small group of people, kind of like the Leilani people. I think there is that aspect for the need for security, and they might be interested in having a gate at this point.
You know you have a good attorney when he thinks of problems that you didn't. And so the attorney is going to cover things very well. We've been very happy with Lincoln Ashita so far as the LCA attorney. Alice and I both came away from the meeting yesterday feeling very much in good hands. Yeah. Okay, so in no particular order, anybody have something they want to discuss prior to the other agenda items?
I have something else besides what we just
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Joanne Jameson. I've lived in this lower Plymouth for about 30 years. I'm trying to find out why poor people are not welcome in this subdivision.
Why what?
Poor people are not welcome in this subdivision. Why do we have a bylaw that says that we need to have 826 square feet, 2 bedrooms and a 2-car garage? What is up with that? Because I have several friends that would like to move there, and they don't have that kind of money, so they want to build a permitted house, and they go about doing that. They want a 1-bedroom house with a carport.
Okay.
I just wish we could change that bylaw. It doesn't seem fair to humanity.
It's a CCNR.
Yeah, I wish we could change the CCNR.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any? Mark, you want to go?
Mark Hawanil. I've lived in Leilani for almost 40 years. I just want to say that I have no objection to opening up Kahukai Street, but bear in mind, try to keep the alignment on the road. Don't deviate in any way. The only way you can do that is the riverbed is wide on the Kahukai end. You can probably go down on the west side. Just try to get into the riverbed and then work back towards the alignment. And then you cut yourself from that point, work your way towards the keeping point.
Okay. The attorney referenced a document called sorry, not very organized here. Oh, there it is. The attorney referenced a document called a right of entry. Apparently it's a legal document that can be created that would address that. And so anyway, but we'll definitely get back to you with what it is that he writes up. You can take a look at it. Thanks, Mark.
All right.
Okay.
All right, I'll try to make this quick.
Introduce yourself. Yeah.
My name is Dane Dupont. I'm administrator of Hawaii Tracker, so I'm going to go through a few things. I got one question for the board. Who does the board determine owns the side streets in Leilani, Kahukai, everything but Leilani Avenue? That'd be the question. Two things I'm going to go through for real quick. Just a quick volcano update on Kilauea. What is it doing? Okay, basically not much. Still sitting up there recovering. No signs of any renewal activity. Basically same place we were last year at this time. Just resting. Okay, one thing that we did do that was important recently is we got our water analysis back from the University of Leeds, where we went, we pulled samples from catchment tanks all around Leilani, Seaview, even Kona side. We did rainwater, all kinds of stuff to try and figure out, what kind of contamination we still have here. And basically during the eruption, everything was just good to it. Every EPA contaminant that did get tested for was above recommended maximum limits. Immediately afterwards, that seemed to drop off pretty quickly, because now when we tested a year later, everything, no matter if it's untreated, treated, proximity, they're all clean now. Everybody's water is clean. However, there are some nuanced things that are happening. One of the things that we figured out that we didn't know was that hydrogen chloride is being released by the vents. And so that's basically a mix of the seawater, the salt in it, and being able to create chlorine to mix in. It comes up, and what that ends up doing is creates an alternative form of acidic rain. So instead of sulfur giving us acidic rain, it's a light dosing of HCl. So if you feel like maybe there's a little bit more rust going on than normal, that's true. That's basically just a summary. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Dane. By the way, Dane, he said it very quickly.
Yes.
But Dane's the guy who, along with Philip Ong, right?
Yep.
Has put together that incredible site called Hawaii Tracker that lots of us relied on for really important information all through the eruption. So Puna and Hawaii Island owe a great debt of gratitude to Dane, so let's give him a thank you. Okay, Phil, you had something?
Yes, thank you. My name is Phil Denny. I live up on Kumakaki. I'm also the Vice President of Concerned Homeowners at Leilani Estates. We wrote you a letter on December 4th in regards to the 82% dues increase. While we have not yet had the courtesy of your reply, we have heard from our immediate past president who opined, and I quote, why don't you people just sell out and move? You apparently don't fit in with the rest of Leilani Estates. What I'd like to know, Andy, is do you agree with Mr. Turkowski that those of us who disagree with you or challenge you should be subject to intimidation and asked to move? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
Each person speaks for themselves. If they sit on the board, they're a board member. And
I'm asking if
Phil,
you agree with that.
you spoke, let me speak now. Each person speaks for themselves. And we run Leilani Community Association as a classic representative democracy, in that the people up here either were elected or, in my case, were appointed by the elected team when other people resigned. So if I or Cheryl or Alice or Patty or Robert or Darrell or Valerie speaks from this dais up here, we speak as a representative of the community. Speaking as an individual is not something we either do control, care to control, or should control. So people can speak their own mind the way they want to say it, just as you did in your letter, and other people can respond to you as they see fit, and the board has no intention of providing any censorship or sanction for anything spoken by anybody who's not a member of the board.
I understand that. I'm asking you, Andy, do you agree with that sentiment? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I didn't say it, so why would it matter that I agree with it?
Well, I think it does matter. You're the president of our association, Andy. I'd like to know how you feel about that. About my being intimidated and being asked to move because I disagree with what you've done.
Probably in a dark moment a few times I've thought a few of you would be better off to get the hell out of here, but I don't have any right to feel that way, and so when I think with more clarity I always reverse on that feeling.
Anybody else care to respond to my comments? Do you all feel the same way as Mr. Turkowski does?
This is the first we've heard of it.
No, I mean, even Keith. Okay, that's all I want to know. Okay, that's what I want to hear. That's what I'd like to hear from all of
doesn't
them.
speak for us, so he has his own opinion as a private citizen. He's not on the board, and he doesn't represent us or speak for us.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a comment they want to make?
Hello again, I'm Annette, I live at the end of Kahukai, Pomona. I'm gonna respond towards his question about raising, the fee from $110 to $200.
Right.
According to what we read, we can go 10% only and not jump up. It's gonna be like $20, $21 raise instead of $90. You know, some of us can't afford that. For me, I can.
Okay.
I'm unemployed at the time. I'm looking for work. Okay, I'm struggling with $110.
Yeah, that, believe me, we're absolutely hearing what you say. That actually is an agenda item. Would it be all right if we address it a little bit later in the meeting as an agenda item?
Oh, okay.
Is that all right with you?
Sure, but
Yeah,
there's
and-
paperwork for veto. I'd like to have the paperwork, please.
Yeah, and since you asked it as a question, when we do address it as agenda item, if you don't feel like we've answered your question, we'll certainly permit you to re-ask it in a different way, if that's all right.
Yeah, like you said.
Thanks for that, thanks for asking the question. Anybody else have something?
Yeah, a lot of rumors floating around.
Introduce yourself.
Pardon me. Keith Raymond, live on Monkey, just up the street here. A lot of rumors floating around, a lot of hearsay, and specifically, let's start with what we talked about opening up, the Jarwin Initiative. Does that have a direct effect on the due increase? Because as I understand it from what I've heard from various sources, the majority of the money allegedly from the dues increase is to pay a loan to open up the street.
There is no loan.
Well, that's why I'm asking to
Yeah,
get
well, that's-
clarification,
that's
because there's
the-
a lot of rumors going around.
Yeah, no, there is no loan in place.
Not yet. Obviously, you can't apply for the loan until you have the funds justified on
No, we
the
were
books.
actually, Cheryl, you want to give the answer? Cheryl's the treasurer, I'll let her give the answer.
Way back after we started coming back into Leilani, the past president applied for an SBA loan. We were approved for a loan for $358,100 for 15 years at 2.5% interest. This is going to be one of my updates. We have not taken the loan. We've gotten extensions on the option to take the loan numerous times, and I just got another extension about a month ago that's going to be good until February 15th. But the SBA also let me know that they probably won't give us another extension on taking the loan unless it's a really extraordinary reason, because they don't want to keep renewing this option. So at this point, no one has decided to take the loan. We haven't even really talked about taking the loan, but we still have the option to do it if we feel it's necessary.
And that's a good option to have.
Yes, it's a good option. I've kept it open all this time, and the only thing is they don't want to keep extending it.
You know, so I'm trying to get to the bottom of where is all this coming from? Because there's a lot of anger and hostility among the residents.
I don't know where they come up with it. We've never said anything about, yep, we're taking the loan, put the stake in the ground, sign all the paperwork, it's a
Well,
done
no,
deal. It's never
let's go
happened.
back to the core problem. The core problem is the alleged that the board decided that they're going to up our dues 86% or what have you, without consulting with anybody, and
Without a budget, where is our budget?
You will be
Everybody
getting,
has a
you
budget.
will be getting a budget. They've never done one here before, ever. We will be working on a budget, but in the
Yeah, so
50
that's-
years of Leilani, there has never been one.
We'll anybody ever suggests to have a?
Hold on, there's one person at a time to speak.
Okay, because
So,
as I
but
just
the
heard,
loan hasn't been taken,
right, I got that part.
Okay.
I'm crystal clear on that. My point is, I want to go back to the core problem of why there's such anger and hostility.
I don't know.
That's a tough one to answer, we don't know.
I don't know.
Well,
Social media stirs up a whole lot of
I
stuff.
don't do social media, I talk to
But
people
that's-
face to face.
But that's
You
where a
know,
lot
if
of
you can't
it
talk to people
starts.
face to face, then where are we?
Okay, well, I'm telling you face to
So-
face, we have not taken the loan.
And I appreciate that. So, can we go to the part of the meeting where we address this because it's the hot topic that apparently is taboo and nobody really wants to touch on?
Actually, it's been talked about for the last 4 board meetings. The last board meeting, there were only 9 people at it.
Why is that, do you suppose?
I'll throw that back at you, why weren't you there?
Because I didn't get
Know
noticed.
about it, nobody ever told us, I didn't.
The board meetings have happened on the second Thursday for 50 years. 50 years. So to say it's in our bylaws, and so to say you didn't know about it is an erroneous statement.
They had a
Okay, fair enough.
copy of the.
Fair enough, but now that I know that it's released on the second Thursday
Okay,
of every month, then you may see me now.
good.
Now, keep in mind, and I'm not belly aching, but I have to get up at 4:30 every morning. So, you know, I'm thinking about my pillow, my blanket here, I'm not thinking about coming and trying to get answers. With all due respect, I still work full-time, I'm not
Okay.
retired.
Do you have another question?
Yes, I have another statement, and I would like to remind the statement that you just made earlier in the meeting, that you have to adhere to the bylaws strictly.
Correct.
So, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, thanks.
Andy, can I say something?
Sure, Alex.
The 2 meetings before this, in November and October, Andy made very clear statements about this is how much money we have coming in, which is lower than usual, and here are our expenses that are more than usual. And he said it twice, both meetings, and then it was covered in the meeting where we voted as well. And that looks like a budget to me. You've got inflow and outgo, and they don't match. And we can write that up as a budget really quickly, I think. But it was very convincing. And I know it's kind of hard to sit and think about numbers when you're not paying the bills in the line itself. But it was very clearly stated for 2 months, and we couldn't put it off longer because the time for the dues to go out is pretty soon. We can't spring it on people in a letter, where here's the new dues. And so we tried very hard to give people those figures so they would know why this was necessary.
And it was
And I
a
think
mistake,
in
some of the
hindsight,
things.
Hang on, one
In
person.
hindsight, and perhaps sending a letter to everybody that is registered and paid their dues religiously, probably would have been a better way to go, because at least they'd have the facts and not be all angry and upset from everything they're hearing from everybody and getting it all misconstrued.
Well, we put it on the BOD Facebook page in very clear
Well, we put it, more importantly, we put it on the LeilaniEstates.org website, which is our legal obligation to do that.
And we sent it out on emails too.
And we sent it out to, for those of you who don't know, we do maintain an email list. Robert started that, about 6 months ago? And so we do send out 400 emails right now. Anybody who wants to get all the updates by email, just go on the LeilaniEstates.org website and sign up for it. We'll add you to the email list. How many of you
One
get
last
emails
thing-
right now?
One last thing about opening up the road. Please have the attorney address the squatter situation down there, because that's the haven down there. I don't know if anybody's really aware of it, but we got a serious squatter problem, and that seems to be one of the main spots down in Cowkite.
Okay, now, one of our policies has always been that nobody speaks a second time until everybody has spoken a first time. So if somebody has a second,
Finish what I was saying.
yeah, actually you did.
And this is very important.
I'm done, thank you for your
Some
time.
people don't have money for computers. I, for one, I would like a copy of the bylaws so I can know what I'm dealing with. I can't log on to some .org and I don't have a way to log on.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next with a question or a statement? Mary?
Hi, my name is Marianne. I live on Alakai since 2011. And just in regards to what I've been hearing too, I think number one, the most important thing is communication. And for me, that's been difficult this year. I mean, as board members dropped off like flies and it all changed, it was really hard to follow as I researched back old newsletters or minutes and so on, different formats, and even I found 3 months of financials. It's kind of hard to find. So I think, as speaking to her and everyone, one central way to communicate from the board.
LeilaniEstates.org.
I understand that, but some people are not getting that, so the email thing, if you don't do social media, a lot of people don't do social media.
No,
And-
LeilaniEstates.org is our website.
I understand that, yes, and I'm on that, I get it, and it's even a little bit difficult, but I still say,
It is a little bit.
communicate, right, with everyone clearly, somehow on a regular basis. Maybe people off island, if it's, annual meeting report, that's fine for them, but those of us that live here, I think, maybe some easier way to get communication, so we don't have all this, he
Well-
said, she said, what's going on.
What
Thank you.
would your suggestion be as a better way to do it?
Well, just as, I'm saying, email is one way,
Right,
the .org is another way.
okay.
Um,
And what would a third way be?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
To cover, that's what I'm saying,
Okay.
there's gotta be something, we can do better communication, because it's not going well this year, in my opinion.
Well, this is
A mailing to the entire community costs about $1,800.
Wow.
So for us to send out a letter is by the time we pay staff, it's about a $2,000 investment. So we're working very hard to control costs within the community by using emails. So for those of you who don't have an email, the office is more than happy to print a copy of the email anytime that if you want to come in and say what just went out, they'd be more than happy to get it. Okay, so Smiley, you're gonna have to wait until other people speak a little. So Chris, what do you got? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Chris Burman. Look, I'm just gonna say that I don't agree with the $200, the increase of $200.
Okay.
I think if you're gonna do things like that, you should at least, offer it, I know not everybody comes to the meetings, but if there could have been broadcast a little bit more, to where we could, toss the idea around a little bit and get some community input before you go and approve or try to approve, with only 9 people in the room kind of thing, I don't think that's quite right.
We hear you. To follow what Alice said, let me just respond to that. To follow what Alice said, yeah, no, I'm not gonna cut you off. It was announced in 3 months of minutes. And so, and beyond that, and the emails and the website, I don't know exactly what else to do. I don't see sending out 2,000 letters every time as an effective or cost-effective thing. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so what's the big new expense on the top of the list? I'm just curious. I mean, is it still $200,000 on this thing?
Did you read the letter that went with it? Did you read the letter that went with the dues
Have you
increase?
pulled that off?
I'm sorry, did you read the letter that went with the dues increase explanation?
No, I have not yet.
Okay. How about if we get to that in the agenda? We are going to discuss
Okay,
it.
cool.
Okay? And thank you for bringing it up, genuinely. Yeah. By the way, I'll say this, Chris and I don't often agree with him, but I put a like on one of his Facebook posts this week, and I probably haven't done that in a while.
But, look, I mean, and as far as roads go, hey, you know my opinion on it. I think there's a lot of people you need to talk to, and they're all down there, and probably not in this room. And those are the people that I think you need to be talking to about the idea of roads.
Is anybody who hasn't asked a question or spoken have something else they want? If there are other people who want to go around again one more time, But I will say, remember, we are trying to keep it LCA specific, so if you're going outside the bounds of LCA, we'd prefer it be a separate meeting at a different time. Anybody else want it for the first time? Okay, and Dane, you got something? Well, Ann, okay.
I'm Ann Calver. I live on Capona Street. I'm a moderator on the Facebook Leilani community page. And I just wanted to put out there that it is a community page. It's for putting information out there. It's not about putting assumptions up. It's not about assuming things about other people, about what's going on. But it is for the community. And there has been some issues and there has been some disputes and fights that have gone on for it. As a moderator, we cut people off. We want people to be part of the solution, not the problem. And when there is a problem, we have to cut it off. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that, talking about getting information, part of it is we have to empower ourselves to find that information. It can't be always just delivered straight to us. If there is something, come in here, come see someone, talk to someone, that you have a responsibility to find out that information. I would rather have the board have their time and energy go into the huge issues that we have here, rather than the time it takes to make sure everybody's covered. Everybody does need to get that information, but also empower yourself to get that, We try and do the videos and get that information out there, but we can't always put it straight in your hand. So, like I said, the community page with Leilani Facebook page is there to get information out, get these issues out, get things out there, but it's not there to beat each other up or to attack or assume or go after other people. So thank you.
Amen, Ann.
Bill? I'm sorry.
Jim
Jim Payne. I looked right at you.
I have a question, and it has to do with the prospective loan and the $200.
Okay.
Is there some way, or has something already been published that says what the allocation of monies would be?
Yes. Yeah, the letter that went out to explain the dues increase.
That's the dues. What about the prospective loan?
We haven't taken
The loans never,
factored into any of it.
the loan's never really been considered for us to sign the papers for the loan. That's why we've asked for extension on extension on extension.
Well, my request then is, when money comes in, there's all kinds of pet projects that are important to various people, and whatever they're passionate about, they want it to go first or early on. If there's money, I would suspect the list of to-dos or prospectives you would like to have would exceed the loan amount, and I would like to know that there's input from us so that we can say, we think that's a great idea, board, but you may be passionate about it, but we'd rather see this happen. That's all it is.
Absolutely. That's what these meetings are for, guys. And we open every email, read every email, and think about every email. So we may not think the same as you, but we think about it.
And one final
Go
comment.
ahead.
It has to do with, is it 315,000, is that what you said?
$358,100.
Okay, 358.1. Assuming we have this deadline and we have to decide, and it's at 2.5% interest or whatever you said,
15 years.
is it possible, early payoff, that if forced into it, we can take it, 3 months later, we decide, hey, we're self-sufficient, and we can just pay it off?
And there is
Okay.
no penalty for
Yeah,
that.
the SBA
It's an excellent deal.
incurs no payoff penalty at all.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Danny, you had something else?
Yeah, my original question, I should have asked it at the end instead of the beginning. Who does the board determine who owns the Leilani side streets, all the roads, who owns them?
Who owns the Leilani side streets?
We've always assumed belong to Leilani.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Let me turn the question around. Who do you think owns it?
That's not what the TMK regulation says.
It's what?
Not what the TMK regulation suggests.
What it says is it's in a trust of some individuals, but my take on that would be that without getting your hands on the trust and actually reading what's in the trust, it's hard to say what
it
it
is.
means.
We'll ask our attorney.
Okay, please do, please
We
do.
will. We'll ask the attorney. Thank you. Phil, you have something else?
I've looked into that, Andy.
Well, no, we don't want an answer, we want questions. We don't want the membership to be answering the questions of the other people in the membership.
All right, I'll tell you.
Yeah, you guys talk after the meeting. Yeah. Okay, anybody else have any other questions or comments at this time? Okay, so,
Can I make one comment?
of course,
Yes, I have, I'm on Kula Street, and we had a house across the street from us, foreclosed years and years and years ago. We've had several squatters in it. I'm wondering if there's any kind of communication with the banks, more so now since the eruption, to try to potentially foreclose or sell these properties. The one across the street particularly, because it's still a really beautiful home, and
that'll actually take two completely different answers.
yeah.
The first one has to do with the criminal aspect of it, and Alice is the perfect person to answer that. Alice heads up the most effective committee that's worked in Leilani Estates since I've lived here 10 years, owned property 15 years, and Alice created a thing called the Squatter Elimination and Crime Reduction Committee. And surprise, surprise, nobody thinks that's a bad committee. So Alice has done yeoman's work at making that committee effective. We've shut down squatter houses. We've had criminals arrested as a result of that committee's efforts. And we're working more closely with the police and the prosecutor's office than we know of ever before. But Alice, why don't you talk about that?
Yes, I would like to ask the entire Leilani Estates to tell us where these squatter places are, because only the neighborhood knows. And pretty much only the neighborhood is severely impacted. The whole community is severely impacted because these tend to be places where looters hang out and have a safe place to go. So, but if I don't know where the place is, we haven't got it on our watch list. And we have, yours is not on our watch list. So if you would get my card and contact me and tell me, we can put you on the kind of surveillance that we do. That's the answer to question one. And we alert Neighborhood Watch works with us on watching the place, but, sorry, Andy.
No, I was just saying, the second part of that question, we can't answer.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Okay, great.
The banks are gonna not respond to you. If you try to call a bank that's foreclosed, they'll go, oh, I'll put you on hold for a minute. And then that'll be the last you hear about it. And you can try that 100 times, and it'll happen. Because they really don't wanna talk to you. And they really don't wanna take any responsibility. And if the place deteriorates, then they want to even take less responsibility, because it's not gonna turn into money to them. So what you have to do with the banks, we actually did have a successful one in Wells Fargo, not off the dime, but we did a workaround for that. So I'd be glad to talk to you about that, workaround. But I'm not saying that's the easy way. The best way is to get the people to move, pressure the people and get them.
Yeah, nobody's in there right now, and
Oh,
we have
really?
nobody's in there right now.
Okay,
But we have a really strong street, like our street's all really tight, and we work together
Without
great.
neighborhood involvement, you can't
Yeah,
get rid of these people.
it's helped.
Without Miley Street, everybody coming together, we never made this happen.
Yeah.
So get my card and we'll talk.
Where the little dark colored beetles are slowly moving in on our table. Jim, what do you got?
I just wanted to suggest, because I just live next door, so I walk over and talk to Kim whenever I want to. But she's a fountain of assistance all the time when she's here, and good information. So as much as, for example, you want to copy the
That is
bylaw.
such a joke. She's ignored 3 of my letters until I pushed it in her face.
Well, if you walk up and ask her.
I asked her. I came up here 3 times. She's a fucking joke. I'm sorry. And you're all a bunch of wimps for not listening to people that need to speak out. We have dangers in this freaking place. Nobody sees. Nobody cares. I mean, the squatters, that's a good one. You guys are right on talking about the squatters. But you know what? People are poor and they deserve to live too. We should be able to have work trades. We should be able to speak out. We should have more than 3 minutes. Smiley got more than 3 minutes. You know, just try to be fair. Try to be human, kind, both. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything else they want to
I
talk
just
about?
want to finish saying, both ways, you can come and ask him, or if I don't know that Alice is the person to go to, or Andy, just come in and say, here's something, and Kim will get it to the right person. If you can't do social media, you can always come and talk to Kim.
And by the way, thanks. I do want to discuss a comment that got made because it was important. Anytime you want more than 3 minutes, what you do is you submit for an agenda item. It's what Dave, John, and Smiley did. And it can happen literally right at the start of the meeting. You can simply say, I want to place an item on the agenda, and typically we ask people to assign time to it, 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it may be. As I said, we felt the one about the Smiley was bringing up was enough consequence that we didn't want to limit it. But so if any of you do want to speak for 3 minutes about something and you're an LCA member, you're welcome to put something onto the agenda at any time you're ready. Okay. So anybody, are we done with the opening comments from the membership? Okay, so what we asked for the next portion of the meeting is to not get questions and feedback while we're in discussion as the board. We will have a time at the end of the meeting that you can ask any question about anything that's discussed going forward. But we do ask that you hold those questions and comments to the end, because not everybody wants to stay till the bitter end. And so we're trying to get through the meeting in a reasonable time frame. So the first subject that I'll bring up is, in fact, the dues increase. As of right now, the dues increase will be implemented to go in place for the 2020 billing. I'm just going through some nuts and bolts stuff on it first. We are working with a better system for taking online payments. We're probably going to be working with PayPal for that. There won't be any cost to the person making the payment. LCA will incur a small cost, but it will permit us to have a better track record. We did run into, as a result of our audit, one of the things we ran into was a recommendation that we tried very hard, as much as possible, to not handle cash. And so we are working, I'm working with the Bank of Hawaii, trying to create a process whereby you could take cash to a branch of the Bank of Hawaii, and it would be deposited directly into the Leilani Community Funds in your account name and number. We don't have that one in place yet, and it might be excessively expensive. But we were very much told by our accountant that large quantities of cash coming in here is both unsafe and unwise. So there was, in fact, a fairly extensive explanation of the dues increase as far as the explanation for the need for it. But it really comes down to two things at the end of the day. It comes down to, first and foremost, loss of income. 700 lots in round numbers were covered by LAVA, as all of you know. Some of you may be that person. The previous board, the 2018 board, voted unanimously to make the payment of dues by those 700 people optional. They did not relieve them of paying the dues, but they did say that they have the option of not paying those dues, and that a credit would simply be issued that would again render their account as not owing any money. This board has not decided to renege on that agreement, and in fact, we haven't had any discussion of reneging on that agreement as well. But what that does boil down to is a $73,000 direct loss of income, but there's also an indirect loss of income. Leilani Estates derives a portion of its income from transfer funds when property changes hands, from liens collected on people who don't pay their dues, and we place liens on their property. and from a few other miscellaneous things. We get a little bit of money from dog violations. Anything else? I can't think of anything else that money comes. Oh, we've actually had a few donations, minor. But in any case, huh? Oh, the cell tower, yeah. The cell tower income is fortunately is unchanged. We're going to continue to get that. But at the end of the year, it's projecting out that we're going to have about at least a $73,000 or $74,000 decrease in income, probably more like a 90, based on those secondary incomes, about a $92,000, $94,000 shortfall. The exact amount's a little difficult to predict because we don't know how many of those lots that are under the lava were lots that were going to be transferred, for example. As you all know, there's a $200 transfer fee. That actually amounts for a fair amount of income every year. So we have that loss of income. On the expense side, and for those of you who work a little bit with budgeting or accounting, basically two sources, money in, money out. So money in is down significantly. Money out, the previous board acted very, very wisely and immediately got Moku Street and Capono Street fixed well enough so that people could get back to their homes. That ran a little over $40,000, counting the direct expense and secondary expense. There was some signage that went up that was probably the right thing to do given the circumstances. It was unanticipated. So that was an unanticipated expense for roads and maintenance. To bring the roads, putting entirely aside the Kahukai Street extension, simply bringing the roads that were damaged by the lava flow that are not covered by lava, to bring the quote we got to bring Moku and Capono back to just the areas that were badly damaged and temporary done repairs was about $101,000 to $110,000. And then Jay Travasky's done a fabulous job of mapping every damaged road that remains in the community. The projected costs that we're seeing to bring the roads back to snuff, back to what they were, back to what the road out in front of my house looks like, is probably going to be something in the neighborhood of $300,000, possibly as much as $400,000. We did get a quote for some very accelerated rusting that's happening in the pavilion. We are finding out and starting to get quotes on it that the projected costs were probably projected high, and we'll probably be able to get out from under that for less than the $200,000 to $300,000 that was projected. We may get out of it for something as little as $100,000, $120,000. There's other repairs and maintenance that needs to be done to bring this facility back to its back to both safety and functionality and aesthetics. There's an aesthetic component of it. That's not, it's not a small amount, but that's probably in the $40,000 to $40,000-ish range. And those are all unanticipated expenses. When Smiley said that the other folks in Kona or wherever it may be had expenses from the eruption, yeah, but there's only one community center you can see Fisher 8 from, and we're in it right now. So we have greatly reduced income, greatly increased expenses. Decreased expenses, well, we lost 35% of our roads, and so it's going to cost us 35% less in labor time to mow them. But we still have the same tractor. We still have to do the same repairs to that tractor, and we still have an employee who has to run that tractor. Labor is our largest expense every year. The labor of our 2 employees is our largest single expense. We ran the math, and we ran it 4 meetings ago, I believe, pretty scrupulously within best of our abilities as a board. And then we ran it past our accountants, and we talked to our attorney, and we're told that our number one role as a board is to provide for the upkeep, repairs, and roads and maintenance of the Leilani Community Association. So we can't renege on that responsibility. So the money's got to come from somewhere. Robert has worked diligently with the Imu Apuna, Lower Puna group to get money from the government. And all of you have read the newspaper reports. There's $500 million on the table. And so far, Puna has not seen one plug nickel of that $500 million. Robert's working daily, I would say, on bringing that money to Puna. I'm a representative on that committee. Smiley's on that committee. Other people from all over Puna are working hard on that committee. And with that said, there's a meeting here in this room at noon tomorrow with a man named Douglas Lay, who is the new Director of Disaster Recovery for the County of Hawaii, who has been charged with moving forward on the distribution of those funds and of other disaster relief. So be here at noon tomorrow if you'd like to meet Mr. Lay, who's new in that job. But with all that said, we can't count on that money. We have to move forward and heal our community. So we came up with the number of, when we ran the numbers pretty scrupulously, and some of you were at these meetings, that it was going to, the new dues would have to be $199 a year to recover, to bring us back to the same level of funding and providing for the needs of community that was happening at the rate of $110 a year because of the loss of income and increased expenses. So we went through the bylaws very carefully, very scrupulously with our attorney, and the bylaws permit us to do that dues increase. What the bylaws say is that we can do a 10% increase, and the membership of the community has no recourse on that 10% change whatsoever, other than to throw us off the board. That's the only recourse that can be taken. What it further says is that if the board chooses to raise the dues by more than 10%, there is a second recourse. And it's called out very explicitly and very exactly in the bylaws. We talked about that 2 meetings ago, and we talked about it 1 meeting ago. There's a 60-day window to make that objection. I won't go through it verbatim right now. I'm sure you've all read the bylaws and have them memorized. But with that said, sorry, sometimes I can't help myself. But with that said, we have every reason to believe, and our attorney has every reason to believe, that we are scrupulously following the bylaws at this time. Now, Annette, I'm going to come to your point in a moment. So, as of now, we have not heard from the membership that they wish to enact a veto of the bylaws increase. If we do, in fact, receive that veto request and the bylaw requirements are met, we will and are obligated to act on that and to call the vote that's required by that veto request. But I really ask you all to read the bylaws before you, as Ann said, post erroneous information on social media. Now, Annette, going to your thing that you brought up, and I hope I'm okay using you in particular as an example.
Yep.
At no point in time did we not feel that there would be a certain number of people in this community that increasing the dues by $90 a year would be a life-changing amount for them. That it was something that for whatever reason, and we all could be there in a heartbeat, that $90 would be a lot of amount of money that would be something that would change our lives. So what Heather Hedenshaw and I have done is we've created a fund, a relief fund for people who will simply have to identify themselves. No other criteria will be set. And that fund, through private donations, will pay the dues increase for any person who identifies themselves as that being something that they can't afford. Board members have already donated significant amounts of money to that fund. Other members of the community have donated amounts to that fund. So Annette, we absolutely didn't hear what you said, and we absolutely are prepared to make sure that that does not affect your life in a negative impact.
Okay, so I can go up here and sign up for
Absolutely.
that part.
Absolutely.
Okay, and can I also bring up where we got that $1 million, 18 million, whatever, coming from, for help, coming from Brian Schatz?
19 million.
Yeah, okay, now from Brian, according to Brian, what he's doing is, he's giving it to our council member to handle everything.
Yeah, okay, so
That's where
I
our
don't-
council member come in?
yeah, I don't dare let that conversation consider. I will continue. I will tell you, Robert has been in dozens of hours on that very topic, Robert.
Well, you'll say I've been listening a lot.
No, it came in a newspaper, that's why,
Yeah.
you know, Brian is giving our
I've been
council
involved
member.
in many hours of that
Yeah,
conversation.
so we go to Ashley Kirkowitz, who's our council member for,
That's a great place to
also
start.
Oak River,
So
and get our help.
suggest,
Yeah,
if you can come tomorrow,
yeah.
the meeting we're having here,
Yeah,
Okay.
specific,
that will address that.
Oh,
yeah.
and what time again?
12 o'clock.
12.
12, perfect.
And that,
Hi.
if you do get a hold of that $18 million, let us know. All right. Yeah. And if we do get the 18 million, I'm gonna let Jim Penny pick out some pet project of his and we're gonna
Already vote.
Okay, so the board is moving ahead with the dues increase. It will be reflected in the statements that go out. We intend to scrupulously follow the letter of the bylaws. For those of you who are confused or unclear about the bylaws, and by the way, our attorney has said the following thing about several clauses of our bylaws, and I quote, "They are poorly written."
Very good.
The good news is, we're not unique. Apparently poorly written bylaws exist the world over. So don't feel like we were singled out for it. But we are getting clarification anytime we feel that we don't understand what's going on. Any of the rest of you have any more comments about the dues increase specific to that subject? Okay, so we're gonna move on from that subject. If any of you have questions about it, we'll take them at the end of the meeting. The
My
second,
apologies. I don't, no disrespect in walking out of the meeting,
No.
but I gotta go.
none taken. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too.
Okay. The next subject that we're going to talk about is the upcoming election. Obviously, this board is getting close to the end of its tenure. We did get an email from somebody about us raising the dues, and the email said, "I hope you all know your days on the board are numbered," and we said, "Promise?" But with that said, there's an election coming up. Nominations are accepted. There has been an error in the nomination process. in that it was off by a day. The community has always made the cutoff midnight of January 31st. The bylaws actually say by the end of the day, January 1st. So we will be shifting it by that one day. Because January 1st is a holiday, we will accept mail nominations that are postmarked up through January 2nd. And there's a drop box right over there, so even though this office will be closed on January 1st, anything that's in that drop box on January 2nd will be accepted as a nomination. The nominee must be a LCA member in good standing. We'll be coming to that in a moment. And they must be nominated by an LCA member in good standing. And that will all be verified, and that person will in fact receive a response back very quickly as to their eligibility to run for the board. Anything else on nominations, guys? No, we good? Okay. The third thing is that Robert, in his report tonight, will be discussing the definition of in good standing, and Robert has a whole presentation around that. So we'll let that wait until it's Robert's time to do his presentation. Infrastructure updates is my third subject, and last, by the way, for those of you who are thinking we need to move on. I want all of you to look around this room. So we've hired a new cleaning service. The fans are completely free of dust. The windows are sparkling. The floor is waxed. We found a very, what we felt was inexpensive but wonderfully run, locally owned business who will be maintaining the interior of this building and the bathrooms to a level that we hope I didn't think the bathrooms were that bad, but Pam told me they were. So anyway, the bathrooms will be kept up to Pam's standard. So, but anyway, I hope you all noticed that the windows are sparkling and the fans are pristine. So,
working.
yeah, no, that one died. That's a different. That's infrastructure. So anyway, that's the end of the president's report. So we're going to start down the other agenda items. As some of you may know, we broke the board up with areas of responsibility. We created teams, 3-person teams, and Robert Golden, our vice president, was charged with governance. And so, Robert, take it away.
So we have talked about the problem that we're perhaps one of the few HOAs which does not have staggered elections. So historically, since the inception of the Leilani Community Association, the entire board has been elected at every election. And therefore, there's no continuity from board to board. So we want to change that. So there, you see the information in terms of the relevant parts of our bylaws. So you can see it in terms of how it exists currently.
And there was a handout, right?
Yeah, there's a handout. Everyone can see it. You can try and more there. So, we're going to actually vote on this now, am I correct?
Yes. Well, if someone makes a motion.
Yeah, so I'll try. I still make it. Right. So this is good just to try to get us in alignment with good practice. And perhaps many of you know, the United States Senate operates the same way, that one-third of our bodies are elected.
Look how efficient it is.
Right. Thank you. So I'm going to make a vote. I'm not going to read this whole thing here.
Yeah, I think you should read the new one.
I am. Okay, I should read the entire thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Election and term. This is our proposal. The directors shall be elected for a 2-year term and at the annual meeting of the members of the corporation and shall, unless sooner removed by the members of the corporation as provided by these bylaws, hold office until their successors shall be duly elected. The terms of the office will be staggered 2-year terms. 3 directors shall be elected in even-numbered years, and 4 directors shall be elected in odd-numbered years. Nomination for the directors to be elected shall be made by any member in good standing. Okay, so if you look at section 6 of your bylaws, it gives you this definition of when you're not in good standing.
Well, do you want to commingle or 2 things right now?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nominations for directors to be elected shall be made by any member of good standing in writing to the secretary of the corporation and nominating the desired candidate. Said nomination shall be made on or before the first day of January of the year in which election is to occur. The notice of the January Board of Directors meeting, the Secretary of the Corporation shall list the names of all nominees. The 3 or 4, depending on the nominees receiving the highest number of votes, shall be declared elected as members of the Board of Directors. The Secretary of the Corporation shall certify the election of each of such directors. Now, here we have a little note here. In order to transition to these staggered terms of office, in the upcoming year of 2020, but only in that year, there will be held elections in 2 different terms, for 2 different terms. Candidates will choose to run for either 2 of 3 openings for a 2-year term, or 1 of 4 openings for a 1-year term. In all subsequent years, all elections will be for 2-year terms and use the staggered election schedule described above.
And just to clarify, as a question, so that this change will have no effect whatsoever on the term of this current board. Isn't that correct?
Well, we're all stepping down at the end of our.
Right.
So if we want to up again, we need to.
Right. But I mean, this doesn't extend the term
No,
of any of us.
no,
Okay.
no. Okay, so I so make that motion. Is there a second?
A second?
Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded to change the election terms of the bylaws to the 2-year staggered terms as just read by Robert. May we have a vote on that motion? By a show of hands, unless we have people who disagree. Okay, so let's do it, but let's go down the table then. Valerie? Yes vote or no vote? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. Darrell?
Yes, I do.
Robert?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Cheryl? And I vote yes as well. So the bylaws are changed by a unanimous vote on the election terms. For those of you who aren't aware of it, I've lived here 10 years. As far as I know, that's the first bylaws change that's ever taken place. So you are there. You can tell your grandchildren. For some of us, that just means we make a phone call. So anyway, okay, now Robert also has another subject.
Yeah, so when I wrote this up, I proposed the idea of term limits. I'm just going to read this and then I'm going to say something about it. Section 2A. Director may serve only 2 consecutive 2-year terms. After a director serves for 2 consecutive terms, then that director cannot stand for a position on the board until following at least a 2-year period in which he or she does not serve. On further thought, I actually want to table this. I actually want to table this. I just feel it's better for the board to get up and running in the new situation, and then we can come back to it.
Okay, so that motion is tabled. Okay, very good. Okay, and then you were also going to handle the subject, the definition of in good standing.
Okay, so let's get this very clear. For any member to nominate somebody, for anyone to run for an office, any member who is in default in the payment of any lot assessment shall not be a member in good standing. So that's the negative definition. So you're in good standing unless you have not paid your assessment. And while he may attend or she may attend meetings, he shall not be, or he or she shall not be entitled to vote. Now read this. Provided, however, that each member of meetings are given pursuant to Article 3, Section 3 thereof, and provided fully, and provided.
I think we can do a synopsis of that.
All right, so basically I need to be told ahead of time that they're notified ahead of time that they're not in good standing.
So the board's talked quite a bit about this. And we've decided that our interpretation is going to be a literal, unembellished interpretation of the bylaws as written. Previous boards have, in fact, added the existence of a CC&R violation to be one of the conditions to remove the status of good standing. This board, we don't actually need to vote on it, but we're going to vote by affirmation, is going to retreat from that position, and we are going to take the bylaws exactly as written, as they've existed for 51 years, to say that the only creation of not in good standing is by a non-payment of assessment, with the clarification that assessment is any monetary indebtedness. So it could be dues, it could be a transfer fee, it could be the non-payment of a lien, it could be a dog fine, but it has to have a dollar sign in front of it. So by a show of affirmation to simply agree with the bylaws as written, could I see a show of hands who agrees that that change is going to take place? Okay, so by unanimous affirmation, the status of good standing has been defined as spelled out verbatim in the bylaws. Okay. That's your list, Robert.
Yeah, that's something else later.
You have something else to say?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cheryl Kaut is our treasurer, and she's going to give a treasurer update with a quick proviso that Cheryl, thankfully, has begun to post every financial statement online prior to the meeting. So you simply go to leilaniestates.org and you will find that month's balance sheet and P&L. So a big thanks to Alice for saving a lot of printing and a lot of reading of long numbers at board meetings.
Sure.
Cheryl. This one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Andy already gave half my update. So thank you, Andy. And it was regarding the information that came out of the audit. The audit has been completed, and we got the draft of the results. And a big part of what they pointed out was about cash handling, and that we don't follow standard procedures. The LCA pretty much never has. Our bookkeeper handles all the cash, takes care of the deposits, and all of that's supposed to be separate people doing it. So when Andy was talking about us looking into PayPal and looking into using the bank where people can make payments, that's one of the ways we're looking at to address this, so that Kim doesn't do the bookkeeping and handle the cash. That's always been kind of a no-brainer that you don't do that in any organization with your finances. So that was one of the big things that came out. The other thing was addressing this huge stack of accounts receivable that we have. It's about $250,000. Some of those accounts have been in arrears for decades. And we were instructed by the attorney that anything that's older than 6 years old should be written off. And
with very few exceptions.
with very few exceptions.
6 years?
Yeah, older than 6 years. And then there's the other issue that quite a few of the big ones are also properties that have been covered with lava, and it's not likely that those people are ever gonna pay, so we'll probably end up writing all of those off. And we also started looking into a professional debt collector to start going after the rest. And we've already looked into a couple of companies, and next week we're gonna be starting interviews. So we hope to get that rolling pretty soon so that we can get a grip on these accounts receivable. But that was one of the other biggies that was pointed out as the result of the cash audit.
And may I do a clarification on the 6 years?
Yes.
Yes, just so because dues are collected every year, you incur a new debt every year. So what 6 years means is that someone who owed money, moved away, we don't know where they live anymore, a new person lives on the lot, their debt's 6 years old, it has nothing to do with somebody who hasn't paid their dues for 6 years.
Right.
That's a different thing. So carrying large amounts of uncollectible accounts receivables is damaging to the financial structure of any organization. So we're going to be getting some very good guidance as to how we move forward on that. But we're also at a new level of aggressiveness going to go after
Yes.
money that's not been paid.
Yes.
Hard.
So yeah, it makes our assets look like we have more assets than we actually have. And so most of those are gonna be pie in the sky. The other thing was the audit cost came in a lot cheaper than we thought it was gonna be, and it came in at $7,109.06, which was significantly lower than what we were planning
We
on.
were told 12.
Yeah, about 12,000, so came in a lot cheaper, so that's always good news. So that's all we got.
And the audit came out with no significant
Yeah,
problems.
no significant problems, mostly procedural stuff with cash handling and then this huge bundle of accounts receivable. Good news pretty much all around.
All right.
Thank you.
And then Alice Windle's our secretary, but she's going to be reporting as the chair of the seeker squatter elimination committee.
Robert's gonna do a thing too, but we've made him talk for a long time, so I'll do my thing. Speaking as the secretary, I'm in charge of keeping the email list up to date, so I'm the person that you get a hold of if you want to have your email sent to you. The disappointing thing is that we don't have on our database in Leilani very many emails. After the eruption, Jay Turkowski begged everybody to send in their emails, and a lot of people did. And I discovered on matching them up, they're exactly the same people who asked Robert to put them on the MailChimp mailing list. And so if you would encourage your friends to do that, that would increase communication and not require fancy computers and stuff in order to do that. So if you will encourage them to get a hold of me. But if you forget about me, just tell Kim, and Kim will pass those on to me too. We only have 400 people on there, and we have 2,000 lots. And this, of course, is going to include the people who are under lava. They're still members, and they still, believe me, want to know what's going on. We hear from a lot of them. So that's my pitch on the emails. And I'm going to try to give a kind of a crime report based on what we've been picking up, the information we've been picking up on the secret committee. And we have good communication with Captain John Brisky of the police department. And he graciously listens to Andy and my Tales with Woe once a month. And he sends us little emails all the time about stuff. So here goes. This month, which is mostly the month of November, there was less crime in Puna than there has been in many years. Now, that's good news, and it doesn't mean there was no crime. And it also translated for Leilani into this is the first month since before the eruption that we haven't had any break-ins or any reported break-ins. Of course, there are empty houses out there still, and maybe when those folks come, we'll find out, more stuff, but, I hope this doesn't mean there's nothing left in Evergreen. And we don't even know, I mean, it's really hard to say, and a lot of people don't have the ability to come back here and keep track. They're trying to make ends meet in the place where they ended up, so, we're not putting any pressure on them. Risky told us that we have I wouldn't call it exactly a special commendation. A Leilani resident who is not a property owner was this month elevated to Hawaii's most wanted list. And that's not a positive thing. That's a negative thing.
And the featured person on Big Island Most Wanted television show.
Well, and I said to myself, well, they have that national FBI thing, but they're not going to have TV shows. So I looked it up on the internet today. It's going to be on TV. Let's see. Leo TV channel 53 on Friday nights at 5 p.m. So that would be tomorrow. And so, to see to recognize our God.
Tell your friends on the mainland today, Leilani News.
But it's not the only most wanted person in all of Hawaii, so there'll be other people there too. But this is a project of Crime Stoppers, Kilo Incorporated, and the U.S. Marshal's Office. So this person will have his face broadcast all over Hawaii for people to watch out for. And he is wanted for an outstanding grand jury warrant and many other warrants of a no-show for theft. And so, anyway, it's not a very thing to be proud of.
Is he currently living
And
in
he's
Honolulu?
Alice's neighbor, so she really wants you to watch and find him and turn
He
him
currently lives across the street from me. I'm down a little bit, thank goodness. So anyway, those of you who have TVs, I unfortunately don't have a TV, so. That's my entire secret report. But please, people, I'm so glad to hear of somebody telling me about the place on Moku Street. We do have people who can watch and and what we do is we contact the block captain, and block captains always know what's going on. So we bring them in on it, and that's the first step of our process. So thank you for that.
So again, we may disagree about dues increases, we may disagree about elections, but none of us disagree about getting the squatters and the slime bags out of our community. So let's give a thanks to Alice. Okay, and Robert, you were going to talk again in a different capacity about the disaster recovery.
Right. So just to give you a little context, some of you might be aware of this. I believe it was last year, an organization started, it's called Inua, which in Hawaiian means go forward, Loa Puna. It was for, started growing out of the vacation land, homes, farm lots down at Kapoho, and in Waiapai, I think I'm getting those names incorrect, but that area. And Jenny and I went to that initial meeting to create an organization to pressure the county to take action. And some of you might have been at the meeting that held on May 10th of this past year, and to really focus on the community and what's going on in terms of the disaster. Bring this forward, there was a meeting held on Monday. Let me see what's at the time. I think it's a week Monday, right? A week Monday of the person who was appointed to be head of the recovery effort here in Hawaii. His name is Douglas Lay, and
Spelled L-E.
E-L-E. He's not a Hawaiian native. He's from the mainland.
He's an islander.
What?
He's from the island.
Oh, he is? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I know he spends time in
No, he's from New York. He's from Manhattan. Manhattan's an island.
What you just heard was quintessential Andy. This is quintessential Andy. Okay, so let me, I like being concise. So anyhow, Susan Kim, who's this amazing young woman, Susan's age, much younger than I am, has been really the spearhead of a new law movement. Organized a meeting for Douglas to hear all these representatives of the meeting, to meet with Douglas, to talk about basically our tale of law, and what's been happening or not happening. So Robin was at that meeting, Andy was at the meeting, I was at that meeting, and you was, Smiley was there.
I had to work that day.
Oh, good. Right, okay. So anyhow, there was a meeting of roughly 25 people sat around the table in Lowell. And we were very impressed. Douglas listened. At least we felt he listened to us. In terms of the various communities reporting about the need for action, period. I'm not going to go into details, but you can probably fill in the blanks. Then many of us went to a meeting that was held the second day. There was both a public works subcommittee meeting and a planning subcommittee meeting held at the council. And if some of you have, who here has attended a council meeting? I'm just curious in the audience. So it's like a minority. It's a very good civics lesson to go to one of those council meetings, either a full council meeting or a subcommittee meeting. I sat through 2 of these subcommittee meetings on the last Tuesday. An incredible civics lesson about how your government works. What? So the bottom line is, Douglas, they gave her, some of us actually gave testimony during that meeting about the lack of action that was taking place here in Lower Plymouth. They just listened, as we just listened, and they just listened to council, they don't interact with us. Then Douglas gave his report. And I'm just going to say this, some of us want him to be more, to relate to what he heard on Monday, we didn't hear that. But he gave a report about his efforts to organize the recovery areas.
It was like a PowerPoint.
It was a PowerPoint presentation, it was a typical presentation.
Jargon.
With jargon. Douglas is coming here tomorrow.
Well, and may I interject?
Yes.
So Robin and I, at the first meeting with Douglas, presented him with a letter from the Leilani Community Association. And what we said to him in that letter was, we said, no one from the county has ever come out to Leilani Estates and addressed our needs, our disaster recovery, our representation in the county. And we said, we invite you to be the first representative to proactively come out to Leilani Estates and address our community. And he took us up on it, and he'll be here tomorrow.
Are you guys
He
gonna
wants to
drive-
be here.
Drive them around.
Okay, well, so this is the point, this is why I'm talking to you. Because every month, I spoke to Ashley today, I had a meeting with Ashley, she's our council rep. They're going to have a progress report at the council. Our planning committee is going to have a progress report. And if we don't see progress, we need to get down to those meetings and tell them that. Now, I really believe, Ashley really believes Douglas will change things around. He's going to deal with a bad history. I'm not going to go into any detail about that in terms of what was done previously. You also can fill in those blanks in terms of what's happened before. But she really believes, and I do trust Ashley, that he is going to be a breath of fresh air in creating community involvement in bringing about efforts. Now, expectations have risen. We know there's at least $60 million on the table, if not more, probably more, that can be spent.
Right now.
Right now. Now, except for the roadway of 132, and someone please correct me, I don't see much improvement beside that happening.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Okay. And we have a lot of work to be done. And as I said to Ashley, I said, I'm you know, if everyone on the council of government, you know, either lost their house or couldn't go fishing, you know, or had their lives seriously interrupted, things would be happening more quickly.
But anyway, come out tomorrow and
So,
speak for,
my
come out
point
tomorrow and
is
speak
that
for Leilani
you
Estates.
need to become more involved. It just can't be a few of us. The more of us will come to these meetings and go through the council, things are going to happen.
Come tomorrow and tell your personal story. That's what
Yes.
they want to hear.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Valerie, you have anything you want to do as a report tonight? Darrell, do you have anything you want to add? Patty, anything you want to add? Okay, so that gets through the board member reports. We covered, Smiley very generously covered the Rod Kindle Dave Drummond item that's listed below. So we will reopen it again now for anybody who wants to again ask a question. Especially a question relative to something we discussed for the last little bit. So Jim, you want to start again?
Yeah, I have three quick questions. With regard to the 6-year delinquencies, do we have the ability to foreclose on those?
Yes.
And when we do they become Leilani properties?
That's a very complicated answer, but suffice to say that we are getting counsel on it.
Okay, number one. Did we not have insurance here in the association to pay for some of these extraordinary expenses?
We,
Go ahead.
we do, but there were some issues with it. When the lawsuit was first filed,
No, he's talking about the maintenance.
oh,
Maintenance.
maintenance, oh, on that building.
On two different things. I hope we have liability, so if somebody gets injured.
Yes,
We do.
yes.
All right, and what about like homeowners to where, you know, if you lose your property, like the roads were damaged,
No
will insurance
insurance
pay
on
for
the
the roads?
roads.
Not on the road.
No. No insurance on the pavilion. Insurance on this building.
Inexplicably, as Cheryl said, there was no insurance on the pavilion. We're not quite sure why. We're not going to try to explain it, but there wasn't. There is insurance on this building, or was.
Are we
We
looking
don't know why,
into
this
more
was sometime
go
in the
forward?
past.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, we're meeting with an agent.
Final question is, when I was here last, which I haven't been for a few months, there were things like tourism committees and others that were gonna be set up. Were those still functioning?
No.
The tourism committee, we only had 4 applicants for the tourism committee. 3 of them were representatives of the same tourism company. And so we certainly would have taken one of those people, but we didn't feel it would have been fair to see 3 people. And then we had no other applicants whatsoever, and so the tourism.
Except 2 on the mainland.
Oh, except 2 on the mainland, thank you, yeah. 2 people on the mainland, but who were husband and wife, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and own the same piece of property. So the decision was made that the tourism committee was not moved on for lack of interest. And the gate committee had no applicants to seat on the gate committee.
Okay, and I'm sorry, one final thing, I forgot this, but it's important to me. And it has to do with clarification of the timelines. People will nominate by January 2nd. When is the new term? When would the elections be? When's the new term begin?
The election takes place on the day of the annual meeting. So you can vote right up until the actual meeting itself. And then Linda Wertendijk will most certainly be running again to count the vote. She's done it for a lot of years, Jay, I don't know, or Mark, how many
It's
years?
usually in mid-March.
Okay, so in
5, 6
January,
years.
where I'm headed with this is in January 2nd, someone gets nominated, John Doe. Okay, mid-March, there's a vote.
Jim Penny, let's use a real name.
No.
Okay.
Mid-March is when the election will be held, notification.
March 12th, I believe it is.
So, member in good standing, the bills go out on
21st, okay.
January 1st.
Right.
Dues have to be paid by mid-March in order to be member in good standing.
Well, the dues can be paid, if you owe money then your vote doesn't count. However, the bylaws, and I'm winging a little bit here, but I got them up. you can pay your dues right up until the day of the meeting. You can walk in with money, pay your dues and vote.
So the good news is, within a 60-day window, we try to collect all the money for assessments, or whatever these fees
So
are.
we try to collect it all year round.
We usually send the ballot out with the actual invoice for your dues, so the timing on all of it's kind of weird.
What, does any, I don't know, you guys know the day that dues actually come due?
I thought it was the beginning of the year.
Huh?
Yeah, it's a little bit after the
April 1st. April 1st.
What is it? April 1, thank you, April 1, there you go.
Really?
So someone getting bills not paid, can still be elected.
So if it is April first then it's arrears from like 2019 and the prior.
Right.
Yeah, but that,
Not 2020.
current dues being owed is not called arrears.
Right.
It's just called due.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So the people who had arrears in 2019.
Gotcha. Okay, I just wanted all those things, thank you.
That's a whole meeting in itself.
I hope you guys know that the cumulative knowledge of this table gets us to a certain place, which is pretty good, not too bad. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of education here, but none of us are accountants and none of us are attorneys. So when you guys ask questions like Dane did, we take it to an attorney, and we get it. And even then, it's only one attorney that we take it to, but we feel like we're onto a good guy. If you want to look up Lincoln Ashida's history, we have every reason to believe Lincoln's a really good attorney, well respected. So it's on you guys now. Jim, you asked a question. Anybody else have a comment or a question about anything? Okay.
This has to do with the ability to vote in the election.
Tell everybody your name.
Gary McMillan.
Thanks, Gary.
So the ability to vote in the election. As it stands now, the inundated lots, it's a voluntary dues payment.
Yes, sir.
There are several people that own multiple lots.
Yes, sir.
Some are inundated, some aren't. So if they do not pay their voluntary inundated fee, are they able to use that lot to
Yes.
vote with?
Yes. Yes, they're not in arrears.
Okay.
Yeah. The way that's being handled, because of a bookkeeping thing, we don't zero bill them. We bill them and then credit them. So, because if we zero bill them, it makes them not be a member anymore. So it's a little bit of a weird tweak we have to do. But yes, absolutely. If you own a lot that's under lava, you're still a member of the LCA as of this time. The previous board did not exclude that requirement for membership, simply for the dues. Go ahead, Nate.
Did I hear correctly that this current board will not be going for re-election?
No, the board unseats and reseats, and so we'll all be off the board, but if any of us were to be re-elected, then we'd be back on the board. Yeah, yeah.
You can't, but you guys, okay.
15 minutes.
Is it, that's what it is, 13 minutes? Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a very liberating feeling. Anyway.
No phone calls during the 13 minutes.
Anybody else have anything else? Well, listen, this meeting was, this is the best board meeting I've ever been to. This was spectacular. The honesty, the forthrightness, the expression of feelings and opinions and ideas and outlooks it's so important. We try really, really hard to remember that we're not in charge, that you guys are in charge, that we're simply implementing the decisions that the bylaws put in place, the CC&Rs have in place, and then the things that things we hear about. The raising of the dues, to say one last word about that. It'd be fun to do everything for free. It'd be a lot of fun. But it costs a bucket of money to keep this organization going. But Robert did a fabulous presentation 2 months ago where he showed all of us that we're the cheapest homeowners association, bang for the buck, in all of Puna. So So thanks to the board, thanks to all of you, and the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Everyone can leave chairs right where
Oh,
they
yeah,
are.
we don't need